Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food systems storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Square. If you run a restaurant or business, Square has the tools to help you stay connected to customers, shift your business, and navigate this uniquely challenging time. Learn more at square.com/go/speakeasy.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his groove in them rhythm and blues that sound. It's gonna get you sun in the air.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy. I'm Damon Boelte.
My name is Sother Teague.
And I'm Greg Benson.
Hey guys.
Hey,
thanks
man.
for great. Doing as best we can, we're coming at you on a Tuesday today. We got a special edition of the Speakeasy because we've got lots and lots of stuff to talk about. We kind of need to do a lot of this stuff on more of a real-time basis. For the listeners of our show, we normally go live Wednesday afternoons, but we got a lot to talk about. So why don't we jump into it? We've got so many things happening right now with the COVID. I mean, a lot of businesses, a lot of shelter in place, it's been postponed even further than we were expecting, but I think we're all kind of expecting it to, go a little bit further. I know just out here in California, it got extended to the end of the month, where it was supposed to be the 3rd or the 6th or something like that. I can't remember. It doesn't matter anymore because you just know it's going to be extended, right?
Yeah, nothing matters anymore. Welcome to New Earth.
Yeah, New Earth. Goodbye, old Earth. So why don't we get started? Why don't you introduce our guest, Greg?
Absolutely. So today from the USBG's National Charity Foundation, we have Kim Haasarud, which, first of all, one of the things I know we wanted to talk about, the USBG NCF and the usual US Bartenders Guild, two different things, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Cool. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that your grant, the Bartender Emergency Assistance Program, that was it sort of reminded me of like the first guy out of the trenches in World War I, like that first week when everything was getting started. Like you were the first one out there. Like it was showing up on all my feeds anytime there was some sort of a Slack thread at work. It was, these folks are out there, they're providing relief and assistance. And like the first person out of the trenches, you got, you did a lot of good work, but you also, there was a lot of potentially misleading misinformation and some misunderstandings. And let's do what we can to clear some of those up today, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely. To start, those are two different entities. So they're both nonprofits, but different types of nonprofits. So the USBG is a guild, it's association. It's a 501c6, and their mission is really about the advancement of the professionalism of the bartender. So educational opportunities, chapters across the country. Then we have the charity arm, which is the USBG National Charity Foundation. And that started back in really 2014, but 2015 is when the programs really started. And it was founded by Bridget Albert from Chicago. I was also one of the founding members. And we really started the foundation because, as bartenders ourselves, we knew that a lot of us don't have a big safety net. If something catastrophic happens to a bartender and they can't go into work to earn tips, that's their income. And unfortunately, a lot of them don't have adequate insurance to be able to cover catastrophes like that. And a catastrophe could be anything from, a severe car accident to specific disasters like Hurricane Harvey or the California wildfires where they've lost their homes or they are being hospitalized and can't go into work. So we wanted to be able to create a program which gave relief to some of those bartenders that weren't able to really afford to be out of work. So that's really the intent of what the specific fund, the Bartender Emergency Assistance Program, also known as BEAP, really comes from, is really being able to offer emergency assistance to bartenders in need. So in addition to that fund, we also have the Helen David Relief Fund, which was started by Tony Abu-Ghanem. So that gives funds to bartenders who are undergoing like breast cancer treatments and so forth. But so those are the two main funds underneath the foundation. And to give you some bigger context, normally under normal circumstances, the process was very manual. We would receive applications and it was one person that was calling the applicant, vetting the application. There was a lot of back and forth between the applicant and the person vetting the application. It was a very manual process, and our turnaround time was anywhere like around 6 weeks. And we had a grants approval committee that met once a month to go over them and to award those grants. So that was the process.
And
so
what was sort of a minimum grant, or is there a minimum at that time? I know we're talking about old Earth now. We're going to talk about new Earth as we get going, right?
Yep. So then the grants would range anywhere from, and it was really based on what they requested. So it could be anywhere from a few $100s to a maximum of $2,500. That was the norm. And the average, if you took the average of all of those grants, it was around $1,800. So that was,
that's not nothing.
That's quite a piece of change to help someone out that's in need and in a crisis time. But we're talking about, normal needs and normal crises where, it's not all of us at once. Suddenly here, it's all of us. And then you get, I'm certain, the inundation of applicants. So you said you just did, that few per week. And now how many a week are you fielding?
Well, I would say that the biggest push was up in the beginning. So, to kind of share some of those numbers with you, like the first, what we went from, granting 12 to 25 grants a quarter during that first week. And it was really Jameson that kicked off that big donation with that big announcement. And that was on March 16th. I know it was like the day, it was St. Patrick's Day or the day before St. Patrick's Day when they made that announcement. And within 48 hours, we had 40,000 applications. And then that number doubled after a couple of days and then tripled after about a week and a half. So right now we are over 250,000 applications, about, I know it's over 270,000 applications. So the rate in which we're receiving them has lessened. Again, we got the bulk of those applications in the first couple of weeks. But I think one thing that we have noticed is that our grant application, went viral. So a lot of employers who didn't even quite understand the intent of our grant was sending it to all of their employees. And then those employees turned around and sent it to their friends and so on without really fully understanding what the intent of our grant was. And I think there's been a lot of some misinformation and some disconnects between, we're really out there to help those who really need emergency assistance, who really need it's. And I think some people have interpreted it as being, if I'm a bartender and I've lost my job, I get a grant. And it's really intended for those who are really in need, that need the money to be able to pay their rent or survive. So
people with existing conditions, people with children to feed.
Exactly. I mean, to give you an idea of like the diverse range of applicants that we've received, I mean, we've received applications from every corner of the country, from every type of bartender. So, from from North Dakota to Oklahoma to Maine to New York City to
Oklahoma.
Washington. Yeah, I mean everywhere, and every type of bartender. So the craft cocktail bartender to the golf course bartender, event production bartender, strip club bartender,
Cruise
the
ship
bartender,
bartender.
the what?
Cruise ship bartender. Too soon.
Cruise ship bartender,
Right.
right? Even we've seen actually quite a few applications from the person that's been bartending for 40 years at their local Rotary Club, or VW. So it's really been vast and
Wow.
pretty remarkable. Yeah. So, and as a result of getting all of those applications, in such a fast way, we've had to definitely has scaled up our technology and our volunteer workforce, which has been phenomenal. I'm super proud of the workforce that we have. We've trained nearly 500 people to help us screen and vet applications, as well as our technologies behind that too. So,
Are
yeah.
these volunteers mostly from the USBG, or is it, or just like in the same way that it's an open application? Can anyone help out and volunteer? Or?
Yes and no. So in the beginning process, we had just screening applications. The first phase of the application and the way we used to do it was on FormStack. And, FormStack is good at collecting data, but it's not good at manipulating data. So what we had to do was take that first major chunk of applications and basically just screen it. So we were just screening just for eligibility and making sure that, there weren't bots or fakes. So that took the biggest workforce, is just the screening of those initial applications. Phase 2 is the vetting of applications, and that's a much smaller group. And those are people that are trusted. A lot of chapter leaders are helping with this process too. We've been able to tap into some of the brand workforces, like Diageo has given us a lot of their sort of on the ground team that aren't working to help us vet those applications. So we've been able to tap into some of that.
That's incredible.
It is incredible. I feel like the daunting part of this task is with the massive number of people applying, and the funds are granted. You've gotten some great donations from bigger companies, but the funds are limited. So how difficult is it to do this vetting process when people are, like you said, you're getting applications from everyone? Maybe they're truly in need, and maybe they're not. But it's still got to be heartbreaking for you and your team to be able to look at one application and say, I'm sorry, you don't get it because this one over here needs it more. How is that going? And is it causing an emotional toll on you and your team?
I think for some people it's built up. I mean, I know I try to, you have to try to compartmentalize, and anyone that's in any kind of industry that is relief effort, it's hard. It is hard work. There are hard decisions that you have to make. No way around that. In any kind of charity that has relief work. So that is really hard. And I think the hardest part is knowing that, everyone to some degree has some sort of need, but some are just greater. I heard this analogy and I've expanded on it, in that, we're all in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat. Some people are on the land looking at the storm, not even really affected by it. There are some people that are in a big boat. It's really uncomfortable, but it's not unmanageable. They're going to be fine. And then you have people that are in a rowboat, barely able to keep it afloat, constantly trying to, take the water out. And then you have the people that don't even have a life preserver, that are out there floating. And so to really take a look at that and assess need, we've gotten it down, but that's on the application process. It's one of the reasons why we ask so many questions, is to help us really narrow down and really find where that need is. So yeah, it's not an easy job, but it's one that has become a little bit easier.
as an applicant, does everyone get a response? Like, even if you're not going to get the grant, are they at least getting a response? I feel like some of the agita and anxiety out there that I'm seeing on my social media from people is that they don't feel like they're hearing enough. And again, I know you're completely overwhelmed, but how does that work?
So, every time someone sends in an application, they absolutely get a response within 72 hours. That's no question. And then there's usually another response 3 days later. So there is definitely communication strategies. I would recommend that if anyone has sent in an application and they have not heard from us, to A, check their junk mail, B, sometimes people aren't aware that they've used a different email address than what they normally have. And so just as a way of do a search for BEAP, BEAP.
I do that all the time. It's like I've got my work email, and then I've got my personal email, and then I've got my band email. Like I can never remember which one I sent stuff from. So yeah, check all of them.
Yeah, and those are automatically generated too, and then they start to go into different buckets of communication. I know that during this vetting process, because there's so many to get to, it may be in some cases like a week, maybe 2 weeks before they hear from us. But but I would say there's definitely communication strategies and plans in place to reach out to all applicants.
Great. I think man, there's so much to cover on this, and we've already heard a ton of it. Again, this is very insightful. I didn't. It's one thing to see in the media how much of the economy is taken down by the lack of bars and restaurants being open. Sorry, but then I wish. Part of me wants the application letters to be out there in the public for people to understand just how important our industry is, and to kind of humanize it. Because I feel like a lot of times that, especially on the bar side of it, I know that I've been told that oh, you're just bartender. You just party for a job. And I'm like, no, we do this for the community. We're part of the community. And this is just something we're very passionate about doing. And we're humans too, and I just feel like there's, do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah. To really put a face on the people that it's helping. I mean, I feel that too, but I feel like this in a strange way that we've been able to put a bigger spotlight on bartenders and what their roles are. And I hope to continue to do that, to continue to raise awareness of what bartenders actually do, because I do think there is, for a lot of people. I mean, even for me. I mean, I'm a consultant, and recently my mom was like, "When are you going to get a real job?"
Right.
I've been doing this for a long time, but yeah. So I do think there is still that challenge with people that, oh, it's not a profession, and I think that's been a big change over the past 10 years, and that more and more people are looking at the role of bartenders as more of a vocation versus an occupation.
Right.
So in a strange way, I hope with the work that we're doing helps to reveal that a little bit more.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that as we approach New Earth, that this kind of opens up the dialogue a little bit more about just general inequality in America, and how at the opening of the show today you mentioned bartenders live on the edge as far as margin in their lives, and one catastrophe, be it great or even just kind of small. One car in need of repair, not even a wreck, just has to go to the shop, could be the tipping point. And that's true of all Americans. They say the statistic of America is that a $400 surprise bill could be the tipping point to put people, into dire straits. And here we are now with the economy shut down and businesses stopping the flow and money stopping the flow. Hopefully we can get to a place where this shines a light brighter on the inequality of what's going on in America in general.
Right. And I hope, I would think, especially in places like New York City, your margins are much thinner than
Yeah.
in other places, and it'll be interesting to see what happens to a lot of New York City bars and bartenders, and if there's going to be a culture shift and change to be able to prioritize employees and what that looks like, without having to have such razor thin margins.
Yeah. I'm dealing with it right now. We got approved for the disaster loan for a large chunk of money, but at the same time, we had just paid off our investors after 5 years, and I'm ineligible for the stimulus package because on paper I made too much, but really the bar made that, and I didn't see any of that.
Yeah.
So, and I'm ineligible for unemployment too because of this, and I'm still having to pay the government out of my own pocket for what the bar was making. And so like now I've got a loan on top of that. So it's like, there's just like, it's like this crazy snowball effect. It's
right.
Wow. We gotta like kind of power through it and just hopefully, stay
we're
positive.
solving through all that stuff ourselves. The margins are razor thin, and how can we change what's going to happen when we are able to go back to business? What is business going to look like?
Right.
We're looking to places that have already kind of gone through this. We think of like our friends in China who've gone through this already. They're ahead of us. They're in the future already. So how can we model ourselves after them and make it work in the American style of hospitality? How can we make it work in a tight space like New York City? When we have restrictions that are going to limit us to possibly a quarter of our capacity, well, that puts my bar to, and based on space, that puts my bar to 6 people in the room at a time when normally we're used to having 40 in there. So that's not a quarter, that's, a 16th. So it's going to be
your bar just went from 240 square feet to 120.
Yeah. It's going to be a crazy, adjustment, but we're going to have to do it. Life finds a way, as it were. But let's take a break real fast, hear from our sponsors. We're going to come back and keep talking to Kim Haasarud from the USBG National Charity Foundation, more about what's going on with those funds and getting them allocated. So stay tuned.
This episode is brought to you by Square. We all know that this is an incredibly challenging time for our friends running restaurants and small food businesses. With social distancing in place, people are staying home and eating in, and restaurants have had to pivot to pickup and delivery only. HRN would usually be recording our podcast from our studio inside Roberta's. But since they've had to close their dining room, they've ramped up their frozen pizza production, set up a wine and grocery shop, and seen their delivery orders skyrocket. Like Roberta's, many restaurants have been changing offerings day by day as they figure out how to best serve their customers. If you run a restaurant or small business, Square has the tools to help you adapt. One of these tools is the Square online store. It lets you set up a free online ordering page with curbside pickup and local delivery so you can keep customers safe. You can deliver orders yourself or integrate with delivery partners. Its Order Hub lets you manage all your incoming orders in one place, no matter which delivery partners you choose to use. Square has all the tools to help you stay connected to customers no matter where they are. See everything that's available by visiting square.com/go/speakeasy.
Welcome back to the Speakeasy on Heritage Radio Network. We are in the virtual studio on our way to New Earth, hopefully. And in the studio today, we have Kim Haasarud from the USBG. And we've been talking about the Charity Foundation before the show. I kind of want to just take a pause as we just took a break from the episode. We're talking about some really heavy stuff. I'd kind of like to shift gears just a little bit. What are you making at home for yourself? What's your cocktail food situation? How are you? Because you're working your ass off, and we all thank you very much for doing this. By the way, it's a very hard job to handle. How are you decompressing during this time, or are you?
Yeah, are you getting any self-care?
It's been hard because even on the weekends, I feel like, okay, I need to unplug. I try to do that on Sundays, binge watch a little bit of Netflix. It's actually really helpful when I can binge watch or even play like a video game. So it's mind numbing a little bit, and it just takes my mind elsewhere, which is awesome. So my son has Legend of Zelda Breath of Wild.
Nice.
Love that game. It's one to like go deep in. So finding kind of little outlets like that like I can just veg and just my brain goes elsewhere really helps a lot. But we also try to do things and get outside as well.
Do you have to like schedule around your son playing the game, or is it one of these things where like he goes to bed and then you like sneak down late at night and turn the Nintendo on?
Right now he's kind of taken a break from Nintendo Switch and has gone to Roblox. I don't know if you guys have kids and are into that, but it's a platform where there's like thousands of different games, and they're like pixelated. They kind of look like the Minecraft characters.
Oh, cool.
You can do different things. So that's what he's into now. So
nice.
So just to clarify here, the like super advanced Nintendo games are now being played by us old people. The kids are back on like the stuff that looks like Dig Dug, right? Like that's where we're at.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
Excite Bike. That was my favorite. Nice. I found out my one of my good friends and neighbors has a kiln, so I'm gonna start making copitas and firing them in the kiln. And yeah, I'm just trying to figure out any way to stay busy. I'm getting in shape. I've been riding my bike a lot more, and we've kind of joked around on the show and just around our friends a lot lately about where like what's the first place you're going to go to like when we get through all this, and there's been a lot of funny responses like I just whatever the closest bar is, or like I would go to a TGI Fridays if it were open. Like it doesn't matter. But I've been really digging like seeing a lot of people working on art and like kind of getting like into more like family stuff and like cooking, and so it's again trying to stay positive through these things and like kind of honing some skills and crafts and also building relationships in ways that we hadn't before, or maybe like kind of like slipped off of. So there's some good things. I just wanted to like touch a little bit on that for a moment, Kim, just to
hand formed and kilned copitas by Damon Boelte. This sounds like a raffle opportunity to raise money for yourself in the bar.
Well, maybe.
I love it.
Maybe if you could find somebody with some mezcal connections, Greg Benson.
I think I might know a few people. I'll spin through my Rolodex and see what I can find. And then we can auction them off for the USBG NCF. There we go. We're all tied in.
Yeah. There you go.
This wasn't supposed to be a plug for my hobbies, but yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, man. I'm down.
All right, Kim, other than currently, it seems that we can all see that the USBG Charity Foundation receives a lot of cool donations and monies from all over the place. We're seeing it, but how did you generate monies before? How did you fund the grants that you were giving away before?
And it was all donations. Every penny was from donations from various companies and organizations. And again, the need wasn't as great as it is now. So the fundraising aspect wasn't as great as it is now. But it was all funded from everything from individual donations to company donations. And keep in mind too that a lot of our BEEP grants in the past were usually disaster specific. So for example, right before COVID-19 happened, we had the Nashville tornado. So you had a lot of people in that community that wanted to raise money specifically for Nashville tornado relief efforts. So we were able to work with that local community in creating a specific campaign around that. So we could have local donations or people be able to fund their donations specifically for that campaign that would go to relief efforts for people that needed it for that specific disaster. So we've done it with Hurricane Harvey to and a few
Sure.
others.
So I'm just asking. I mean, it's not largely important, I guess, but I just so what you do like a pancake breakfast, you throw a party, you have a band, how do you generate these funds?
Normally it was just straight cash donations, and often let's just take Nashville as an example. They would might be doing some local fundraisers that would come into this campaign. So that could really vary. But as far as on a national level, those were usually all pretty straightforward contributions.
Right. And now, are you using the sort of strength of the USBG logo are you reaching out to maybe the bigger brands? Like, Jameson came forward to you, but are you reaching out to, I don't know, Jack Daniels or Tito's or anybody like that?
A lot of them have come forward. We do have a task force within the foundation that's like big donors. So we are putting together plans. And what's interesting too is that, you had quite a few brands come forward with some donations, but now they're coming back around and wanting to give another donation, but maybe in more creative ways. So coming up with, hey, we'll do matching funds if, so just coming up with other creative ways to be able to contribute versus just a straight donation. So that's kind of the second phase of fundraising, because we have to keep the fundraising coming in to be able to meet all the need out there. We project by the end of the month we would have already given out about $1.5 million in grants so far, but that's going to go pretty quickly now that we're finally at the place where we're running on all 4 cylinders and have like the vetting team that we have. That's going to happen much faster. So, it's up to us also to, try to come up with some creative ways to keep the fundraising coming in.
Well, I'm sure, yeah, because as people settle into, this, it's not normal, as people kind of settle into whatever we're doing now instead of normal. I'm sure, the novelty of springing forward and saying like, oh yeah, I want to give is falling off a little bit, as it often does. Like, when in disasters, you see a huge outpouring of initial relief, and then the trick is keeping it in the public eye and keeping, making sure that people are aware, like, hey, it's the problem isn't gone. It's just not new anymore,
Right.
I
Yeah.
have kind of a hard question for you that I want to ask, because in the initial days of this crisis, that St. Patrick's Day week, I actually put in for a grant of my own from the USBG NCF, because, the Titanic was down and we're all just figuring, like swimming through the chaos and grasping at whatever pieces of flotsam that we could. And yours was the biggest, most visible lifeboat out there. And I think also it had the advantage of, if you're in our industry, it's a friendly face. It's not just applying for a government loan. It's applying to like, hey, these are my people. They know what I'm going through. Now, a few weeks later, actually a couple weeks ago, now that I've gotten I've gotten my stimulus check, I've gotten a few other things worked out, I went on and I withdrew my application because I realized I didn't need it anymore. But what would you say to someone who threw in an application at the beginning of this crisis and is now kind of looking around and evaluating their circumstances and wondering if they should push forward or if they should pull their application out so that someone else who has greater need could get that money?
And that's a great question. When someone enters into phase 2, we do ask them that question. We say, you've been moving forward on to phase 2, and basically asking them to assess their need and if they would like to rescind their application or if they would like to move forward. So we are seeing an attrition rate on that and some drop off. But it's interesting because I think we're seeing 2 things happen. One is, like you said, we're seeing the stimulus checks come in, we're seeing unemployment kick in, where someone doesn't have the same need that they have, and so they're dropping off. But on the flip side of that, we're also seeing people whose situation is changing and evolving over time to be more dire. Maybe they weren't eligible for unemployment, and maybe before, when they sent the application in the week that they lost their job, now it's 4 weeks later. Now it's going to be coming on 6 weeks later, where now they're in default. Now they are behind and they can't pay their bills and they have food need, and their need is getting more dire. So we're predicting that will continue to happen too, that both of those things will continue to happen.
So your volunteers, are you guys processing a lot of people who are saying, hey, thank you for being there. I appreciate that, but I've stabilized myself enough, so I'm willing to pull out of this process, because it's not a bottomless well. Like, none of these aid programs that are out there are truly bottomless fonts of money, because that doesn't exist.
Right. So we are seeing and asking if they're in a different situation and want to rescind their application. So we are seeing that happen. But again, we're seeing the opposite happen too, where situations are becoming more dire. And, we think that probably in another few weeks, when we do eventually run out of funding for this, is that will give us another sort of stick to go out to for brands and other companies as well for support. Hey, we have 1,000 more people that have been approved for grants. Could you give this much so we can give grants to these people? Eventually, I think that's what it will come down to once that funding runs out. But
you had mentioned earlier that the average grant that you were giving out before was around $1,800, I think you said. Has that number changed based on the high demand? Has that number had to lower itself?
Yes, absolutely. So now our grants now are anywhere from $150 to $500, and that's based on need too. So we absolutely had to change that. And also, in prior circumstances, we had people that literally lost their homes or could not go into work. And this is more of an unemployment crisis, which, again, some people, and this grant is really intended to supplement federal assistance and other means that people are getting some help to be able to offset some of their bills or help, give them some cushion and breathing room for them to figure out their next steps.
What would you say to the listener who is thinking about but has yet to apply? Are there any sort of like specific guidelines or rules or just general tips?
Yes, I would. Yeah, please go to our website and check out our FAQs. We have a pretty extensive list. We actually have different FAQs. We have an FAQs for people that are filling out the application, and it walks you through like the very specific documents that we need. So please read those carefully. The number of incomplete applications that we've received has been pretty enormous. And I would even go as far as to say a lot of the regrets emails that have gone out have really been due to we have incomplete information or we don't have sufficient evidence. A lot of people just did an autofill, when they're filling it out and didn't take the time to really read through the documentation that we need to be able to assess need and assess eligibility. So on our website, it's pretty detailed of what the eligibility requirements are, what the selection criteria is, and all of the specific documentation that we need. Here's acceptable proof, here's not acceptable proof. So that's pretty clearly lined out. I would really highly encourage people to check that out before sending out an application. We also have an FAQs for people who have already filled out an application. And to your question earlier, people that haven't heard back from us, some steps that they can do to check on that. So that's another separate FAQs. And then we have FAQs for our campaign in general. But yeah, that would be my biggest tip to people.
Yeah, and that's great. We're just here saying it again through a big megaphone. What is the website, by the way?
It's usbgfoundation.org.
Right, not to be confused again with USBG because they have their own website.
Yeah.
But I would assume that one directs people over because this surely happened, right?
Sure. Yeah. And even on the USBG website, there's a list of, another thing that we try to do in addition to grant, is give people resources. So we've created a collection of resources, also links to Tobin Ellis's hospitality relief dashboard, which
Yep,
gives
he
a
was on
list
the show. He was on the show a couple weeks ago. Great
of
episode.
awesome. He's amazing.
Yeah.
So, enlisting, giving people some resources to tap into their local, unemployment offices and other charities and other organizations that are offering relief efforts too. I mean, ours is pretty specific to bartenders, and we define how we define a bartender according to our eligibility requirements. But there are other organizations that are also giving to, front of house and back of house employees in that realm too.
I see in my notes here you've got a little something about a health and wellness initiative. That's important to me, especially during times like this, because my mental health, I think that's the wellness of health and wellness, is kind of always on a rocky footing. And how I deal with it typically is I keep myself really, really busy. Suddenly now a big chunk of my life, which is going to work, is taken away. What sort of opportunities or initiatives have you created regarding health and wellness?
Well, thanks for asking. We have a health and wellness committee, and we've been coming up with some initiatives. So the USBG in general has done like Wellness Wednesdays, where they post various on their Facebook page on uh, various resources and outlets. So the Health and Wellness Committee is really amplifying that. And we're also seeking out additional resources. We've identified health and wellness in 3 different buckets: mental health, physical health, and financial health. So we're currently seeking content in those 3 buckets that we could help amplify those voices. So if you are interested, Sother, in writing a blog for us, we'd be interested in putting it out there.
Absolutely. I'm in.
Great.
And I think that's a really important way to categorize health, right? Especially right now, because I mean, it's, just thinking of health as your physical health is a pretty outdated way of looking at it. I'm glad that in the past few years, I've seen mental health move a lot more into the conversation as well. But I think financial health is particularly important. I mean, like I said, I'm more stable now than I was this time a month ago, but you can be in tip-top shape and meditate for 20 minutes every day and have a really great relationship with your therapist. But if you have a huge financial cloud hanging over your head and you don't know how you're going to make rent or how you're going to pay your insurance premiums or anything like that, that's going to be a big drag on the other 2 aspects of your health as well. So I think that's a really smart way of categorizing it.
I couldn't agree more. And I think especially for bartenders, and a lot of them are very social people, they like to be around other people. That's part of their job, hospitality. And when they're stuck in a house with those stresses already, and have a shelf of alcohol behind them, it's a recipe for disaster right there. So definitely trying to come up and give them resources and other outlets to be able to deal with that. I think, knock on wood, but I think this is, an unhealthy situation in all 3 of those categories for bartenders in particular.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's one thing that this crisis has kind of exposed. We've talked about this on the show before, is the fact that it's coming into very distressing relief that so few of our elected officials have had blue collar jobs, which I think is part of a reason why the rollout to help people who work hourly and who work for tips and have businesses that operate on a razor thin margin. I think the reason that the rollout for that has been so awful and it's been so easy for monstrous corporations to get grants is because people who are in positions of power don't understand a lot of those issues. Like it's very clear that financial health has never really been a thing that's been at the front of their brains, but it's also heartwarming to see how much our community has rallied to take care of itself and to take care of each other and to step up and fill those gaps and make sure that everyone stays healthy. I have one more question. I know we're getting towards the end of this episode, but I wanted to ask if someone has sent in an application and their circumstances have changed, or for whatever reason they got a a regrets email from you, what would you advise them to do?
So if their situation has changed for the better.
Either way, if their situation has changed for the better or if it's changed for the worse.
So I would say if they've gotten a regret email, and again, the mass majority of those were sent because of incomplete applications, I would invite them to reapply. There's absolutely no restriction on that whatsoever. So if you feel like you haven't provided us an information, or you need to reapply because your situation has changed, by all means reapply, please. And you really feel like and your situation is you need it, then absolutely apply. If you feel like your situation has changed where you no longer need it, there is a way to do that through those communications where you can rescind your application.
Great. And if like you said, because we're all people who love being social and we love a mission, and there's been a big outpouring of support of people looking to say, hey, what can I do to help? Like, I'm used to, I like doing stuff and being productive. I'm used to filling 50, 60 hours a week with it, sometimes more for us in some cases, cough, cough, Sother. Is there an opportunity for people to join your core of volunteers reading these grants?
Yeah, I think we're actually at capacity right now with the vetting application process. However, on, I would say, a local community level, and this is the advantage we have with chapters, is that we're able to mobilize, and we're able to connect people that way with those local efforts. So, we have so many amazing things happening in local communities, restaurants doing furlough kitchens, and them partnering with local charities, which we highly recommend. And I think there's a lot of opportunities that we can help connect people with that on a local level.
You mentioned Tobin and his hospitality dashboard. There's lots of opportunities there. I've gone and taken a look. It's you can go to that website and get a lot of information on how to get help. You can also go to that website to get a lot of information on how to give help. It's there to help you know how to best help.
Indeed.
Right.
Well, I think that's about all the time we have for the speakeasy today. Unless, Kim, there's anything you wanna say at the very end before we let you get back to all your hard work and Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much for having me on and shedding a light on this. And I the beacon at the light at the end of the tunnel that I see is that the hospitality industry has always thrived, and normally it's been like a recession proof industry. And I think people really want to get back to that. People really want to go back to those restaurants and bars and so forth. So I definitely see our industry surviving and even thriving beyond this. It just might take a little while to get there.
Yeah, agreed.
Sure. The example that I keep seeing or using myself is, we keep talking about how this relates pretty closely to the Spanish flu of 1912, and then, we did bounce back. We had the roaring 20s. Granted, it was 8 years later. Hopefully we can do it a little quicker, but, the opportunity to come back and come back stronger than before is obviously there. But, it's going to take some rolling up of sleeves and some doing some heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Kim, if any of our listeners wanted to get in touch with you or reach out or follow the progress of the USBG NCF, what would be the best way for them to do that?
So I would say on our dashboard on the home page, that's updated every day. So we have, the amount of applications screened, donors, funds. So all of that is updated if they want that kind of information, data. If you want to reach out to me directly, you can. My email is khaasarud@usbg.org.
Great.
And you're on all. You guys are on the socials too as well. I'm not a big Twitter guy, but I know I definitely follow you guys on Instagram.
Yes. So we're on USBG. Our handle is USBG NCF. And just also note, every Thursday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, I do a live Instagram update, kind of giving you some good news and giving everyone most recent updates, and also answering questions that people submit earlier.
Great.
Yeah, that's outstanding. That's outstanding. I have one sort of follow-up question to an earlier one. You mentioned that there are definitely different ways we can get involved with our community and things like that. But those of us that are maybe a little bit more fortunate, our listeners who aren't in any kind of dire straits, but have some extra money, but maybe don't have the resources or time to donate towards being active, on the website or anywhere, is there a button to simply donate?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, if you just go right on our usbg.org page, just right there, front and center, are a lot of our resources, and there's a donate button. So, and because our grants are anywhere from $150 to $500, every little bit counts, whether it's $25, $50, whatever you can do.
Yeah. Outstanding.
Right on. Well, great, Kim. It's been awesome having you on the show today. It's been very eye-opening. I know we've heard a lot about like these different charitable donations and activity happening. So it's been really great to actually hear about the details of what's actually going on with the USBG Foundation. So thanks for being on the show today and enlightening us.
Yeah, and thanks for all the hard work that you and your teams are doing. And I know it's probably not very easy work, but it's very meaningful and impactful, and you're doing great service to the community.
Well, thanks so much, Sother and Greg and Damon. And again, with our Health and Wellness Initiative, I'd love to invite you guys to, because you guys are on the front lines, encourage you to contribute to with a blog entry or so forth, because you guys are experiencing it a little ahead of us from other parts of the country.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I have plenty of time.
Pizzas can wait.
Yeah, exactly.
For the community, damn it.
Yeah, for now we'll just drink straight from the bottle.
Drink straight from the bottle, and you can do some writing while things are in the kiln. It's not a fast process.
Exactly. Well, cool.
Well, I think that sounds pretty good. Damon, why don't you take us out?
Yeah, that's it for the Speakeasy this week. Check out heritageradionetwork.org, and please go to usbgfoundation.org to help out in any way you can. Thanks again to Kim Haasarud. I can't wait to actually hang around with you in person and have a copita of mezcal when those are finally finished.
Me too.
Yeah, cool. All right. Well, until next week, or until tomorrow, actually, we're doing as many shows as we can during this time.
Time is meaningless.
Yeah, exactly. Be safe and cheers, y'all.
Cheers, guys. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Bye.
So you don't shun the devil with your rock and roll load. Knows that country music's gonna save your soul. The devil runs his groove in them rhythm and blues that sound. It's gonna get you sun in the air.
The Speakeasy is powered by Simplecast.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to learn more about our 10-year anniversary celebration happening all year long, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find us at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network.
Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be part of the food world's most innovative community? Subscribe to the shows that you like, tell your friends, and please join the HRN family by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.